Why do we need targets, thresholds, and benchmarks? As an AQUIP institution, we're committed to the process of continuous improvement. Without targets, thresholds, and benchmarks, we would become complacent. So let's take a look at each of these in a little bit more detail. Targets are the results you're aiming for. When it comes to setting your target, the number that usually comes to mind is 100%, meaning you'd like 100% of your students to pass a particular quiz or an assignment. There's nothing wrong with setting your target at 100%, but it's okay if the target number is less. The key to setting your target is that it's realistic to the task. Once you have your target identified, you'll need to set your threshold numbers. A threshold is a number that is set either lower or higher than your target. Thresholds are the numbers that make your internal alarm bells go off. Threshold numbers that are lower than your target are the most common, and odds are you're already listening for those alarm bells. Think about a time a student missed a critical quiz question. Faculty will take an inventory to make sure students understand the material. The only difference now is that you're documenting it. Higher threshold numbers, on the other hand, may not be on your radar at all. And if your target is 100%, how do you set a high threshold? Students who are consistently doing better than your target and threshold range need to be challenged to keep their skills and knowledge sharp. Think of ways that you can keep them on their toes without becoming complacent. It's important to remember that targets and thresholds move with one another and should be evaluated often. If you ever decide to raise your target number, you may have to raise your threshold number too. Once your targets and thresholds are set, you'll need to consider benchmarks. Benchmarks are, quite simply, a comparison with others. How does your program stack up against others like it? Benchmarks can be a variety of different things, like national placement exams, enrollment numbers, completion ratios, and so on. Benchmarks are often used as motivation to either do better or as positive affirmation that we're doing really well. With your department, determine your targets, thresholds, and benchmarks for every program learning outcome. If you're not sure which benchmarks to use, see your Dean of Instruction for ideas. Once your targets, thresholds, and benchmarks are set, you'll need to create action steps for how you'll document the results.